Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Natcat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to reintroduce you to the updated version of my TBR game. I have been playing my TBR game for at least a couple years at this point, and every once in a while with TBR games you just have to update them because your reading tastes change, the way that you read changes, your reading goals change, or as a creator my goals as a channel or what I put out as a channel changes, and I want to make sure that I can continue playing my TBR while accommodating all of that. So this time we are going to go ahead and go through my TBR game. If you are new here, I don't think I've played this since like May, so it's been a few months. I play a TBR called Leserin, Dich, Nicht, which is based off of the German game Mensch, Dich, Nicht, which I believe in a lot of other countries is known as like Parcheesi. I usually play this game every other month. However, I was doing some traveling, hence why it has been a little time since I last played it. However, recently I have been thinking about making some changes to the rules of this game just to make it more fun for me, and also because I feel like the way that I've been picking up books has changed a little bit. I have recently found, not that I'm becoming a mood reader, but that I prefer a slightly larger TBR to choose from. I don't like being as restricted as I have been in the past. So I have made changes that will hopefully allow me to be a little bit more loosey-goosey with my reading, and also to kind of help me potentially put out some more themed vlogs, which sometimes was hard to do with me having to prioritize my TBR from my TBR game. That being said, in this video, I'm gonna go ahead and go through all of the basic rules. As I go along, I will let you know where all the major changes are. If you've been watching this TBR game for a while, you will probably be able to spot them. After that, I will go ahead and talk a little bit about the viewer prompt, which was a new addition, I think a couple games ago, but that is having some changes to it as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about the opportunity to win some giveaways. And then I also want to go ahead and go through all of the prompts. I think I did that the very first time I introduced you to this game, but I haven't done that for a few years. So I just wanted to go through my old prompts as well as introduce you to some new prompts that I'm adding to this game. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and head to the floor so that I can show you the basic setup of this game as well as walk you through all of the rules. All right, everyone, welcome back to the TBR game, or welcome if you have never watched this before. Have you missed her? Because I have. Now, before we get started, one thing I just want to state is we are not starting the game over. Last time I made major changes to how I played the game. I ended up taking everyone who was out on the board and putting them back home. This is the longest game ever. It is like impossible to finish. Like I said, I have been playing this at least for 2 years, and I have never once even come close to finishing it. So this is not how it is going to be set up once I actually start playing it again. Everyone will be where they left off during the last game in the month of May. But I just kind of wanted to give you a general sense, if you are new here, of how this game is played. So the major pieces, we have our 2 die here. The first one I roll is going to be this colored die, which is literally just scraps of paper that were glued to an actual dice. And as you can see, each side represents one of the colors that is represented on the board, and every color represents a genre. We have blue for sci-fi, yellow for contemporary and literary fiction, red for romance, green for fantasy or magical realism, black for horror, thriller, mystery, and purple is historical. And on the rare occasion that I am feeling a classic, I technically group it into that as well. So I start every game or every round of the game by rolling this die to figure out what color piece I will be moving. Next, we have just a regular 6-sided die, which obviously I roll next to see how far my little piece moves. Now, a couple rules regarding the roll numbers. If, say, everyone was at home or everyone in the yellow was at home and I rolled a 3, then I could take this person out and go 1, 2, 3. That is fine. However, if I then say roll a 4, I could technically go 1, 2, 3, 4 because he would not knock his own person out. However, I cannot do that. I have to move this one because once there is a player on the board, I can only take a new person out if I roll a 5 or a 6. So there's that rule. Like I mentioned, a yellow player cannot knock out another yellow player. However, if say I had then rolled a 1 and I had been on romance, and so I took a little red person out, and then I get contemporary again, and I roll a 2, obviously I cannot take a person out because it is not a 5 or 6. I have to go ahead and move this one, which would then knock this red person home. Now, here is where one of the big changes is occurring. Used to, I would do 5 rolls. That would be my starting point, 5 rolls. And then if I knocked someone out, I would add a roll. So my contemporary knocking my romance out would go ahead and make it 6 rolls. Change, I am doubling the amount of rolls that I'm doing, meaning that I will be starting the game with 10 rolls. Like I said, I want to have a larger priority TBR that I can pick and choose from throughout the month. And by having more rolls, I will be able to do that. Also, I'm going to be totally honest, I love rolling. I love rolling and I love seeing what prompts I get and then picking books for them. So it just gives me twice as much fun. Now, that being said, the rule of adding a roll still applies, which now you're like, okay, now we're getting into pretty high numbers, Natalie. I mean, you read a decent amount, but like 11, 12, 13, 17 books a month? I don't know. That is why I have capped it off at 15. So I cannot get more than 15 rolls. I mean, I'm hoping that I don't be knocking out players that often. Okay, where was I? I got distracted by my mom informing me that my cat wants food. So what was I saying? Cap at 15. Hopefully we don't get to 15 rolls, but that being said, could I read 15 books in a month? Probably, if I tried really hard and if the books were short and I threw in some audiobooks. But I just, at the same time, want to have a realistic TBR that I have a chance in hell of finishing. So those are the basic rules. Now, as you can see, there are little pieces of paper. I only have 4 of them out. Imagine that there is one in every single one of these spots. Now, these have prompts on them. Like this one is a novella, which means that if I landed on this, say with a historical, I would need to read a historical novella. And then once it is completed, this would be taken out and then I would replace it with another prompt. So these prompts are ever changing. And just a reminder, I will be going through all of the prompts at the end of this video if you're curious to see what those are. The only special thing about some of these prompts are some of them have these little paw stickers. There's very few of them, but I'm trying to think how many there are. There might be like 4 or so of them hanging around. If I end up getting a prompt like this, then I do need Hi, Tofu. Hi, Mama's filming right now. I do need to go ahead and add a roll too. Hi, we have a guest. Tofu Butt, Mr. Tofu. He is, I guess, hungry. So yes, those are the prompts, and now there's cat hair all over the board. Now, say my little person makes it all the way to the last space. This is the last space. This is the first space. So essentially, if I rolled a 2, 1, 2, he is now in his little house. These little spots are mood reads. So I would read a mood read contemporary. It would still be within the genre, but there's no specific prompts for them. Now, if I got another contemporary and I rolled a 3, obviously there's not 3 spots. So in that case, we are going to treat it almost as if everyone is home. So I can take a player out, 1, 2, 3, even though it's not a 5 or a 6. Now, if I rolled a 2, again, I could either move this one, or if I wanted another mood read, I could move this one. They can move forward within their house, but once he reaches the end, I can't like move him backwards or anything. The goal, obviously, is to get everyone home. Has that ever happened? No, it has not happened, but here's the hoping that as we do more rolls, the probability of us getting more people home increases. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm hoping. I would love to finish this game. I mean, does it matter that much? No, it doesn't matter. This game could go on forever and ever. I'll just be getting prompts and that'll be totally fine. But still, it is a fun idea to actually finish this game and accomplish it. This probably is not going to apply for the next few months, if not the next couple of years, because I only play this every other month. But let's just say I got every single yellow person home. Wow. But we still have other players. They're kind of hanging around and whatnot, and, you know, they're out and about. Does the game finish? Do I just never read contemporary again? No. Essentially, what I'm going to do at that point is just take them all home. I'll make a note to myself that contemporary has accomplished their goal, and then keep playing the game. And then once romance accomplishes goal, I'll make a note of that. And then fantasy, and then horror thriller, and then historical, and then sci-fi. And then once everyone has accomplished the goal of reaching home for all 4 of their players at least once, then we will consider the game completed. We'll have a big party. And then we'll start over. That is the never-ending game, essentially, as most TBR games are. So I think those are all of the basic rules. I don't think, let me check my notes real quick. All right, yes, I double checked my rules. That is the basics of it. Let's go head over to Standing Natalie, and she will talk about another change, and then we'll get into viewer prompt as well as some giveaway stuff, and we'll talk about all of the prompts that I have. All right, guys, now that we've gone through all of the rules, one more major change that is occurring, and that is that I'm getting rid of punishments. So used to, at the beginning of every video, I would go through the books that I was supposed to read based off of the prompts that I had the last time I played. And if I didn't read all of the books, or at least read 50% of all of the books, I would need to start the game off with a punishment prompt, which would be something along the lines of reading a classic, because I don't really like those, reading a book over 500 pages, reading a book off of someone's worst of list, things like that. However, since we are now choosing a larger quantity of books and not fully expecting to always read all of them, we are going to go ahead and get rid of punishment prompts. There are certain prompts that I added back into the rotation as just regular prompts, but there was others like add 2 roles that I didn't add because I wouldn't be able to do anything with that as a regular prompt. That is the next big change. I'm hoping that makes me a little less stressed about my TBR so I can have a little bit more fun with it. And if, say, I had a themed TBR that I really wanted to do, usually if I do a themed TBR, I want to read 3 books, but sometimes I can't get all 3 of those books on my TBR. And so in this scenario, I wouldn't feel as stressed about saying, oh, I only got 1 or 2 of the books. I'm going to have to add on an additional 1 or 2 books that aren't on my TBR, and I could still read those and know that even though those will prevent me from accomplishing my TBR, it's not that big of a deal. So that's one of the reasons I'm getting rid of it. Now, let's get into the viewer prompt information as well as giveaways. So I believe I started doing the viewer prompt, I keep wanting to say a couple months ago because I think it was a couple games ago, so it's probably been about 4 or so months since I added that. And essentially that means that at the end of my rolls, I do an additional roll that is for you guys. And the goal is for you to go ahead and accomplish that by the end of that specific month. So you only have that 1 month, just like I do, even though I won't be playing the game for a couple of months. The rules for the viewer prompt are essentially the same as the rules for when I play. I would roll the dice to figure out what genre we would read, and then I would go ahead and roll the number die and we would move a piece and you would get your prompt. Same as with when I'm rolling, if you knock someone out, you get an additional roll. Now, for me, that can sometimes be a bad thing. For you, it's kind of a good thing because it gives you multiple prompts. If you weren't that excited about the first one, maybe you're excited about the second one, and you can choose to either just do one of the prompts or to do both of the prompts. And why do you want to go ahead and complete these prompts? Because this will go ahead and put your name into a jar. For now, I'm thinking about putting them into this new vase, so I guess it's not really a jar, that I got while in Italy, because she's just sitting around not doing anything. So essentially, every time you comment that you have accomplished reading one of the books, I will go ahead and put your handle, your username here in this jar. So remember, and I will try to put reminders out at the end of the month to comment that you have completed the book. If you just write, hey, I'm planning on reading this book, and by the end of the month you don't put in that you have accomplished it, then it doesn't count. So essentially you will want to write by the end of the month on the TBR video, I have read this book for this prompt, and then your name would go in here. And then once a year I would go ahead and pull out a few names and you guys will get sent a book by me off of your wish list. So that is why if you guys get multiple prompts in a month because you knock someone out and you do both prompts, you can get your name in there twice that month. So it might be worth considering it, because obviously the more your name is in here, the more likely your name is to get pulled out. So obviously the viewer prompts have to do with the first type of giveaway, and this will happen for sure once a year. So essentially every 6 games. When it comes to the books that you are picking, you want to make sure that the genre that has been chosen is one of the first 2 genres. It doesn't have to be the top genre, but at least one of the first 2 genres listed on Goodreads or Storygraph or wherever you happen to get your books. Now, there is not really a page limit. I would say no children's books or anything like that, picture books. However, if you want to do graphic novels, manga, things like that, that is completely fine. Now, I used to have the rule where I had to finish at least 50% of the book within the month in order for it to count. Now, you do need to finish the book in that month. However, if you started it in the previous month and were less than 50% through, and you read more than 50% of it within the designated month, you can go ahead and count that. So you don't have to read the entire book within the month, but you do need to go ahead and finish it. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions or need any sort of clarification, please feel free to leave them down in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. All right, so that is the viewer prompt and the giveaway that is associated with it. There is one other giveaway that'll happen, but it'll be pretty rare because it'll be part of the party that we're gonna throw if we ever actually finish this game, and that giveaway will be available to anyone. You don't have to read any books for it. If that ever happens, which fingers crossed it does, I will go ahead and let you guys know, and you can just comment that you are interested in being part of the giveaway. And of course, I will remind you 5 years from now when that actually happens. No, hopefully it doesn't take 5 years. But of course, since it is such a rarity, I want to find a way to celebrate actually accomplishing this game. So those are the two types of giveaways. One of them obviously is going to happen a lot more frequently than the other. So the last part of this video is going to be just me going through all of the prompts. I'm going to go ahead and start with the prompts that have pre-existed. There are a few that I have taken out just because they didn't really work for me. Every time I got them, it was really difficult for me to find a book for them. So hopefully all of the prompts that are in here now are ones I'm really excited for. And then once I go through the ones that I have used in the past, we'll go ahead and go through the few that I am adding in, and I'm excited about those as well. All right, so I'm gonna stand kind of close to the camera so you can get a good idea of them. And editing Natalie will not want to cut out a bunch of pauses, so I am going to go through these as quickly as possible. So up first, we have a YA or middle grade. We have a beautiful cover. We have takes place outside of the US. We have a repeat author, which essentially just means an author that I have read before. We have a book released in 2022. We have start a new series. We have a new author, which is just an author I've never read before. We have a 5-star prediction. We have a hyped book. We have a random number generator. Now with this one, what was my intention with this one? Because I have a similar prompt to this, but I would say with this one that we would do a random number generator for my Goodreads board under the specific genre that I pulled. So that's what that's going to mean. Then we have saved on Instagram. I have a bunch of books that are saved on Instagram. Then we have a female author. Then we have an ugly cover. We have a graphic novel. We have an adult book. We have a short book, which is less than 300 pages. Then we have a sister pick, which essentially means I would give my sister some options and she would pick out of those. Then we have buy a book, which just means I need to buy a new book and read it. Then we have scroll on Instagram. Then we have location in the title. We have booktuber pick, and we see this has one of the little paws on it. We have a mood read. We have a word association, which essentially means I would randomly generate a word and then try to find a book that has something to do with that word. We have animal on the cover. We have an audiobook. We have a person on the cover. We have roll a 6-sided die. This essentially means that I would select 6 books and then I would roll a die, and whichever number I land on is the book that I select. We have a city setting. We have a average Goodreads rating of over 4 stars, and the book should have more than 200 ratings. We have a color wheel, which just means that I would spin a color wheel and then choose a cover that is primarily that color. We have on my TBR for more than 1 year. We have a book that involves travel. We have a 1-word title. We have similar to the last movie or TV show that I watched. We have Buzzwordathon. Now, I don't actually actively take part in Buzzwordathon, but if I selected it, I would go ahead and see what the prompt is for that specific month, and then I would try and fulfill it. And then we have a cat pick. Book published after 2020, and we have another little sticker there. Then we have 4 or more words in the title. Then we have plants on the cover. Then we have a MC with a disability. Some of these prompts, such as this one that I consider like diversity prompts, I always add them back in. So usually once I do a prompt, I take it out and I don't put it back in until I have gone through all of the prompts, but diversity prompts are always recycled over and over again. Insta poll pick. So I would go ahead and make a poll anywhere between 2 to 4 books, and then whichever one wins, I would select. This is another diversity prompt. We have mental health representation. Another diversity prompt by a Hispanic or Latinx author. Another diversity prompt, LGBTQ plus representation. Then we have steal from another TBR. So I would look at someone else's TBR and pick a book off of that. Usually I try to look at TBRs for the months that I'm going into. Then we have match my outfit. Then we have won or were nominated for a prize, and that has a little sticker on it. Then another diversity prompt written by a Black author. Then we have a seasonal read. This is a book on my Kindle. Usually this means my Kindle books that I own, but if say I were like planning on getting KU that month, I could potentially use that as well since they are on Kindle. Then another diversity Black female author, then released in November. Then we have beautiful cover. Did we already have that? I know we had ugly cover. Did we have beautiful cover? Then we have scroll on Goodreads. Then we have a translated book. Then we have a non-human protagonist. Then it should be between 350 and 400 pages. Then we have weapon on the cover. Then we have has a blurb from a favorite author. This could definitely be difficult. I don't often pay attention to blurbs, but I figured that was a fun prompt. Similar vibes to my favorite song at that moment, obviously. Then a book I bought before 2023. And then a roll for a second genre. So essentially I would roll my dice again, and that would have to be the subgenre. Then we have a coin flip. So I would go ahead and choose 2 books, and one would be heads and one would be tails, and I would flip a coin. Then another diversity pick, we have an Asian author. Then we have owned TBR, paranormal aspect, verb in the title, another diversity Indigenous author, book of the month. This essentially just means that it was a book of the month pick. I, at this point, have maybe 1, 2 book of the month books on my shelf because I don't subscribe to them anymore. But this essentially means that I would look at their catalog and select a book that they have sold on there. Then we have features mythical creatures. Uses another TBR game. Usually I use one of the Bookopoly boards that I have. Then starts with a or the, has multiple POVs, is a library book. For this, I would use either an ebook or a physical book. I do not count Libby for this. Then another diversity LGBTQ plus author. Then we have a mom pick. Then we have continue a series. We have a novella. And we have a 3+ colors on the cover. All right, so those were all the old prompts that you may have seen before. And here are a few new ones that I am adding. We have a letter generator, so I would generate a random letter and choose a book that starts with that letter. Usually in scenarios like this, I don't count words like the or a. Then we have a book that is written by a trans author or features a prominent trans character. We have everyone's already read this. I went through other people's TBR games to get inspiration for some prompts, and someone had this. It's kind of similar to like a hyped book, but it might have to do a little bit more with like the people specifically in your reading circle where you feel like you're literally the last person to read this book. So I figured that might be kind of fun. Then we have a tarot card prompt. I see a lot of people use tarot cards. I personally don't own any tarot cards, so I would use a random tarot generator. And then there's actually on Storygraph a challenge for tarot cards, and each one has an associated prompt. And so I'm going to use that to give me the prompt that I would use. Then we have similar to my last 5-star read. So it just has to have similar vibes to the last book I gave 5 stars. Then we have Pinterest picks. I feel like a lot of people have been doing vlogs like Pinterest picks my TBR for this vlog. I have never used Pinterest for books, but I would probably, if I say rolled like romance, that I would put like romance book recs in Pinterest, and once I come across the first one that I can either easily get from the library or own, I would select that one. Then we have an emoji pick, which I was kind of surprised I didn't already have, but this one I randomly generate an emoji and we go read a book with similar vibes as the emoji. Then we have building or buildings on the cover. Then we have a new release within the last 6 months. I often see new releases as like within the last year, but to make it a little bit more difficult, I decided to do 6 months. Then we have Aardvark books. I recently started getting books from them. Once again, it does not have to be an Aardvark book that is specifically on my shelves. It just has to be one that they have carried at some point. Then we have the 2 that were once punishment prompts. We have 10 lowest rated on Goodreads. So I would go into the category of the specific genre and look at the 10 lowest, let's say, horror, thriller, mysteries that are on that shelf, and I would have to select one of those. And then finally, we have the 500 plus pages, which I kind of freaked out that that's just floating around there, but we'll see how it goes. All right, guys. So those are all of the prompts. Those are all of the rules. Those are all of the changes. Like I said, if you have any questions or need clarification on anything, leave it down below. I'm sure that once we start playing, it'll all clear itself out. I'm pretty excited about these changes. I hope you're excited about them as well. I'm excited to have you guys playing along with me with the viewer prompts, and I hope that you guys join me in that. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.